All right, Aevusonian, let's buckle in. We got a lot to get through today.
Oh yeah, big lesson.
Obviously, the first thing we have to talk about here is Garfield smoking a pipe. Um, so really, honestly, like at this point, kind of an infamous image of Garfield. I
Yeah,
think this is from '78, like July of '78, but it really kind of grew to prominence in like 2019, sort of like just before
somewhere
the
around there. Yeah,
pandemic. Yeah. So like, my thoughts on this are basically like this is not from the original comic. It's been
yeah. This is a
uh
cropped out image.
yeah, exactly. So in context, this is. I figured out why TTS is lagging. By the way, my computer's not plugged in. There we go.
What do you
All
mean it's
right,
not plugged in?
it's a laptop. We're fine.
Oh, it's a laptop. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So basically, my thought on this is that like if you wanted to go back to like the like mid 20th century new criticism mode that was kind of in like having a second renaissance at the time, you would be looking at like Jim Davis's life and like the historical
Yeah,
context of
yeah.
what was going on around that time. My thoughts on that are basically just that like this is '78. It's kind of before our idea of wealth took on like different like trope identities. So things like Scarface in '83, for example, where you wouldn't have a pipe anymore, you'd probably have like a Cuban cigar. Um, so to me, this is like really representative of like old money. Um, but with the context of John, I think initially John is like a cartoonist and not a particularly good one. So this
Yeah.
is like clearly like wealth pretension on his part that he even has a pipe for Garfield to steal in the first place. This is like a status symbol that he really can't live up to. Is basically my thought on like the original strip. Um, and I'm actually not super familiar with how it came back into prominence as a like a a postmodern 21st century meme. Um, if you wanted to speak to that part of it, that would be awesome.
So, as far as I'm aware, this kind of derived from there was a big push to reanalyzing Garfield from the lens of, oh wait, this was never really that funny.
Sure.
Um, that was a conclusion that a lot of people came to around the same time. I would guess I'm not the most researched in this, but I would guess there was probably some video on YouTube that the kind that pops up and everyone's recommended, and it's like Garfield actually sucked the whole time, right?
Right. Yeah.
Um, and that started like a lot of uh, uh very shitposty dialogue about Garfield.
Yeah.
Um,
We're talking like Garfield minus Garfield,
yeah, yeah,
real field around like 2010, like that kind of era when people were just basically taking Garfield and like remixing it.
yeah.
Okay.
Um, and one place that this went um, is there was a channel called Lasagna Cat,
Mm.
referencing Garfield,
Yeah.
where the joke of the channel was that um, every day they would create a video that pertained to that day of the Garfield comic. So like on January 7th, they'd make a video about a strip made on January 7th, right?
Right. But
Um,
not of that, not like that day's
yeah,
Garfield
yeah, yeah,
strip,
yeah.
like from 40 years ago or something.
Yeah, yes,
I
exactly.
get you. Okay.
Um, and each time they would do a dramatic reading of that strip,
Okay.
followed by like some canned laughter at the end. That would be like ah ha 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 ha, ha. you know. With the idea being poking fun at, yeah, it really is not that funny. But the part that really elevated Lasagna Cat was that then they would do a live action reinterpretation of that same panel where they would get someone
Oh,
dressed up like John Arbuckle, and they would get someone in like a giant fat cat outfit to come in and like do that strip um it with live action.
I got it. Okay.
Um and eventually this evolved into kind of its own universe where there were like discrepancies between the panel and the live action section. um and there was a lot of like real world tie-ins where they had events, based on the panels, where if I remember, one was like John was reading the newspaper and sees some shocking news, and that's the original comic. Well, they set up a hotline that you could call, and fans of Lasagna Cat could call in and just tell like whatever stories they want, and then
Right.
the video relating to that was that Garfield would read the newspaper, or sorry, John would read the newspaper, and it would be one of the stories that was called in with the voice of the phone call, and this would like repeat 40 something times.
Got it. Okay. So this is basically like recently our shared friend Poulter was asking about postmodernism in a server that we're
Mhm.
both in. Like this kind of like remixing and reinterpreting of culture that doesn't really have a center to it. Like at no
Yeah,
point do
yeah.
we learn anything new about Garfield or the act of reading the Garfield strip in this process. We've kind of like left that realm behind, and it's a reference about a reference, right? And there's no referend anymore. We're just kind of like spinning the wheel of culture around this thing.
Yeah, yeah.
I get it. And
Um,
then I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, this image specifically has sort of uh, one specific thing that happened in Lasagna Cat was that this image became like a a meme center point itself. Like this image became a running joke
That's
within
just like
that
an image macro,
area.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
I got you.
Um,
Okay. And so then I guess the logical end point of this sort of like spinning the wheel of culture, as I was saying, is that eventually somebody is going to start talking about this in the middle of an excess succeed lesson and not really bring up why to the audience and just have it be sort of a thing that's going on.
I mean, I feel like a large part of this is that if you understand the history behind this and the exact things that are being referenced by this image, you come to understand what that's trying to say about the Exceed character in question pretty quickly.
Right. Right. All right. That makes sense. So to that end, do you want to talk about Morathi?
Yeah, that sounds great.
All right. Cool. Hang on one second.
Yep,
All
yep.
right. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Excess Succeed. This is Gearface. I'm so glad to be joined by my good friend, Aevusonian. Aevusonian, thank you so much for being here.
I'm Aevusonian.
It's Aevusonian, everyone. We're learning a little bit about Morathi today. Aevusonian has assured me that we're probably going to need to do something. I haven't really figured out what yet to like pad out this lesson because I understand that he's a pretty simple character. I was watching Aevusonian kind of warm up yesterday, and man, it seemed like there was a line with Morathi that I'm sure we'll get into, but he seems like a really fun character. I actually, despite having watched Aevusonian play, I really don't know too much about him. Um, about Aevusonian, but also about Morathi.
Hmm.
So I'm really looking forward to learn a little bit. A couple disclaimers before we get started, as always. Number one, we're going to be talking about playing Exceed to win on this show. That's not always how Exceed is played. Often you should play Exceed for fun. Sometimes the things that we're going to say are going to sound fun to you. Sometimes they aren't. If they don't play that way. Play the way that you do find fun. I think that won't be much of a problem with Morathi. I think he's essentially just like a big dopamine lever that you can pull over and over again, and just kind of get fun out of it. And it turns out that's also the correct way to play him. We'll kind of get into that, I'm sure. And then disclaimer number two is we don't know everything. Again, despite the fact that he seems like maybe the simplest character of all time, Exceed is not a solved game. There are nuances to the game. There are nuances to this character that we haven't explored, despite this character being pretty old. Um, don't take our word for it when we say things like always do this and never do this. Find your own line of play with Morathi. Have some fun while you're doing it, and then tell us why we're wrong. But yeah, with all that said, Aevusonian, please, I would love to know a little bit more about Morathi.
All right, Morathi has a pretty well-earned reputation as being the scrubbiest character in Exceed.
Okay.
Um, he is like the little Timmiest character of all time, where you hand this to your buddy or your little brother who doesn't know how to play Exceed, and you say, "All right, here's a two-step process you can do." And what will result are like reasonable games, even if you're
Okay.
pretty experienced with the game.
So like this
Um,
is this is like one step up from you didn't plug in the controller while you're playing a multiplayer game with
yeah,
your
yeah,
friend or with your little brother and like you're just convincing him that he's playing too.
yeah, yeah.
I got you.
you
Okay.
you hand him this character to be like, all right, we can play a nice even game of Exceed, because Morathi really does not have that much discrepancy between optimal play and like level 1 play.
Right. Right.
Um,
As
and a lot
as
of
I
that,
saw as I saw when I was watching you play yesterday, I think.
yeah, yeah. There was a point when I was warming up with Morathi where I realized that like I was actually just overthinking things, and the level 1 of almost every single beat of the game was like perfectly serviceable, and it's sometimes even better than like the level 3.
Right. Right.
So that should go to show you that I do like to think through my turns a decent bit. Um, I play fast, but I usually am doing a lot of deliberation on the opponent's turn when I play. So the fact that basically all of that I considered to be unnecessary by the end should be fairly telling about what I think about Morathi as a character.
Sure, right. And I mean, part of that, it's like it, Exceed isn't like a pure value proposition where it's like I get 2 goodness points by playing this boost or 3 goodness points by playing this attack, and that's
Yeah, yeah.
always how it's going to be. When we're talking about the different things that Morathi can do that you didn't do when I was watching you warm up yesterday, it's not that those things are useless. It's that you might have to try a little bit harder to find context in which you would do them instead of the default. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Um, a lot of his actually notably strong tools you just won't actually use in a lot of matchups. One, because Morathi is very strong and doesn't need much effort to become that strong, and
Right.
two, because a lot of the time just hitting the opponent is going to be more than enough to do everything you need, and trying to slow down and play at their level, and make tactical decisions, etc. Um, isn't actually going to be worth it because you're
Right.
just better at this
Right.
game of quotation mark exceed than your opponent is.
You're here to fight. You're not really here to think too hard.
Yeah, yeah. And that all, plays in pretty well to Marathi's character. He's a god of war or something.
Right. Yeah, hence this card.
Yeah, hence God of War.
Makes
Yep.
sense, makes sense. Okay, cool. So yeah,
All
let's
right.
get into it then. So I'm
Yeah.
I'm not planning to think super hard. I'm planning to fight a lot.
Uh-huh.
Um Tell me, where do you want to start, I guess?
Well, let's start with the ability because this is probably the most one of the most notable traits about Morathi is that he has this ability. When you set a wild swing, you look at the top card of your deck, and you may put it back or draw it, and then perform a wild swing as normal. So
Okay.
I have my deck of several cards. Let's
I'm grabbing a Morathi deck
yeah, yeah, yeah.
to demo really quick.
Yep.
Excuse me,
So
Morathi.
I've got my 30 card deck, and I'm like, all right, I want a wild swing. Look at this card, and you would look at it secretly, but I'll
Right.
flip it face up for the sake of demonstration. All right, cool. This is an assault. We're at like range 4. I'm not feeling this. All right, I'll put this back in my hand. So I draw this assault and flip something new. Oh, look at that! A
How
dive.
convenient.
How convenient.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was a randomly shuffled deck, ladies
yeah.
and
That was
gentlemen.
randomly shuffled.
Aevusonian is just that good. It really is just that easy when you're playing
Yeah, yeah.
Morathi.
So, this ability has two major functions, which I just demonstrated in their entirety, but I'll elaborate a little more on. Um, First is information. You get to peek at this card and be like, all right, this is a dive. I don't think I want to do this. Cool. I can filter out this wild swing. I have a bit more consistency, right?
Right.
Because if I've got a wild swing I don't like, I can be like, all right, it's in my hand now. Good safekeeping. Notably, since you do this in secret, it is not revealed to the opponent, so there's no risk of like being read or parried for the card you just got. Unless you like audibly exclaim, "Oh yeah, I just drew my dive."
Right. And even then, hey, that's the classic accidental information tell option select.
Yeah, yeah.
There's no reason you have to tell the truth when you say that you just drew that dive.
We're really digging deep for something to talk about when one of the
Yeah, I know.
subjects
Yeah,
is
I like I
lying
said,
about the card you
we got to
draw.
kill time somehow,
Yeah,
and I haven't thought of a good way yet.
I'm doing my best.
Yeah.
Anyway, the other part of the ability might actually be the more important part, which is that the way you specifically get rid of this card at the top of your deck is not discarding it; it is adding it to your hand.
Right.
Which is notable because that is economy. Um, a lot of the time, you won't actually, even if you have an attack on the top of your deck that hits. Let's see. All right, here's a card that might hit at range 1. Even if you have this on top of your deck, you might be like, all right, I'm fairly sure most of my deck hits at range 1, as we'll get into soon. I have no reason for this specifically to be my strike. So since I'm, setting an attack, I might as well just draw this card for free and then Wild Swing again. And oh, look at that. It's another card that hits at range 1.
Isn't that crazy? Okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
this is something that's come up. I've covered a lot of wild swing characters on this show in the past. We've got I guess in order to sort of illustrate the point, I'll pull a few. We got like our Skullman, our Imogene,
Mhm.
our Dan, our Taukaka, maybe our Leo, right? So we
Yeah,
got all these characters who all ostensibly do the same thing, which is throw cards off the top of their deck at their opponent, right?
yep.
And something that's come up many times in the past, that's Morathi again. Hold on a second. Something that's come up a couple times in the past is that you have uh, reward wild swingers and consistency wild swingers. So you have a character
Yep.
like Dan who doesn't actually have a whole lot of range overlap in his cards. He's got like one thing that only works at range 1, a couple things that work at range 2, one thing that's like really a lot better at a greater distance.
Yep.
He can't be sure that when he's wild swinging, he's actually going to get what he wants. This is kind of true
Yeah,
also
yeah.
of Leo and Super Skullman. But commensurately, when he hits you with a wild swing, his reward is a lot greater. And then on the other side of the spectrum, we have people like Imogene and Taukaka who like have an amount of control over their wild swings, either through option selecting or through just like most of their stuff will just work when you're wild swinging.
Just works automatically, yeah.
Yeah. So from what you're saying, it sounds like Morathi is a lot more like he's very consistent with his wild swings. It sounds like.
Yeah, pretty
Okay.
much.
Okay.
Being able to see 2 cards in your deck every single time you wild swing is already like a pretty strong consistency tool.
Right.
But also the fact that, as we'll get into shortly, almost all of Morathi's cards are the exact same card, with the exact same ranges, means that like you're pretty certain every time you wild swing what you're going to get is roughly within a certain set of parameters.
Right. And the set of parameters that you care about usually are that it hits at
Yep,
the range that
pretty much.
you're looking for. And it doesn't
And
like
that
obviously
range
like
is hmm?
I'm sorry, no, go ahead.
That range is about 1 to 3.
Okay.
Anytime you're in that range, you're going to hit almost definitely.
Okay. Makes sense. So I mean, it's probably also worth bringing up the one thing that I do know about Morathi is that there is a line called Autorathi, which is
Yep.
the closest to automation that Exceed has ever achieved. And a huge part of that line is that you go to range 1 to 3 and you begin wild swinging.
Yeah, the Autorathi line, in essence, is just a flowchart that says, am I at range 1 to 3? No, spend as much force as I can to walk to range 1. Yes, or if yes, wild swing.
Right.
Check my wild swing, doesn't hit? No, add it to my hand. Otherwise, play it.
Right. Right. And like there's some nuance to that line, things about like how to invalidate ultras and things like that, but
Yeah,
really
yeah.
it's like this is the little Timmy line that you're talking about, that this is a 2-step process.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. And that works. That is like a decently
Yep.
strong way to play a character.
You can get results doing that. It is not the optimal way to play Morathi,
Right.
but you can certainly perform at a reasonable level by doing this. A
Okay.
large part of that is just the fact that this ability is so good at both making sure all of your attacks do hit and also just giving you the economy.
Right. So the other part of the line, the first part of like, are you at ranges 1 to 3 if you're not spend force? Well, okay, you're going to have a little bit of force because
Yep.
you're drawing cards when you aren't hitting with your wild swings.
Yeah.
Okay.
Additionally, because of all this consistency, and the fact that you can roughly expect every card in your deck to do roughly the same thing, you are going to wild swing even more than you normally would, because there's generally no reason to play a specific card from your hand unless you are calling out one specific thing.
Right.
So that being the case, you can kind of read this ability as every time you strike, draw 1.
Right.
Which when I put it like or not just when you strike, anytime a strike happens, you draw 1.
Right. Yeah,
When you put
this
it like
happens on
that, wow,
defense
this
as well.
ability sounds pretty great. You
Yeah.
know? Because I would venture a very solid chunk of the time you're using this ability and you're peeking at the wild swing, you're just going to add it to your hand.
Okay. Okay. Just because you have another layer of consistency built in, which is that your deck composition just favors the ranges that you're probably going to be wild swinging anyway.
Yep.
Okay.
So that being the case, lessons over. You learned how to play Morathi.
Okay. We got there.
At range 1 wild swing. Draw cards. Yep.
Well, thanks everybody so much. I note that we still haven't figured out a way to like pad the lesson out. Do you want to like talk about boosts or something?
Oh man, I guess. Okay. All right.
It's
We
called
can
excess.
we can
It's
talk
called
about the rest of the character.
yeah. It's called excess exceed, right? It's not called adequate exceed.
Yeah, yeah. All right, let's talk about something you don't need to talk about. Here's your exceed mode.
Okay. Yeah.
Um,
Notably, I did not watch you exceed as Morathi when you were playing yesterday. I don't think.
yeah, in my opinion, the succeed mode is pretty horrible for a multitude of reasons. The first one is that your gauge is really, really strong on Morathi. You have two incredibly broken ultras. And so just the opportunity cost of playing or of exceeding, not worth it. The other is that this is actually not a very good upgrade. Um, and in a lot of situations, this is a downgrade.
Right.
One downside of wild swinging every single strike is that every single strike you are deleting one or two cards from your deck. Um, the one that you played for the wild swing and the one that you drew. Not literally deleting, but they are no longer in your deck. So you do actually, as Barathi, fairly often get closer to decking out than a lot of characters. You almost never do. Exceed is not a game where you deck out very frequently, but
Especially not if you're hitting pretty hard, and I get the feeling that
yeah, yeah,
Morathi hits pretty hard.
he hits pretty hard.
Yeah.
But you do tend to approach that a lot quicker than other characters. And this also bleeds a lot more information than other characters a lot of the time. Um, so what this upgrade, quote unquote, gives you is that instead of just picking up one card, seeing if you like it, or seeing if you like it, if you don't put it in your hand, you look at the top three, choose one of them as your wild swing, draw one of the other ones, and discard the last one. This does literally give you more consistency.
Right.
There are situations where like you're at range one and the top card of your deck is Spike, you add it to your hand and you like grab a dive, and it's like, ah well shit, that was a that was a crapshoot. Um, so getting to see a third card is literally more consistency. Um, However, it's not actually that much more consistency because, as mentioned, your deck is so unbelievably weighted to the exact same type of shape that you very rarely are actually going to run into those circumstances where you just don't hit with the top two cards of your deck.
Right.
The other part about this is that this actively leaks information instead of doing it over time. Because discarding a card, the third one,
It's
is
public.
going to mean, that's one more piece of information the opponent has.
Right.
Um, that yeah, when you're just adding it to your hand, you're concealing that information for a while. It does eventually get revealed because either you have to discard down for hand size, or you boost it, or you play it, or something like that, right? But this immediately leaks some info to your opponent.
Right. Right. Okay. So in terms of like the value proposition, like I'm spending 3 gauge, don't want to do that. I'm spending a turn. Why am I spending a turn instead of wild swinging?
Yep.
The actual thing that I'm getting is of kind of nebulous value anyway.
Yep.
Are there any matchups where you will use this? Are there any times or game states where it actually is like important enough that you'll do it, or is it really just like that's not what we're here for Morathi for?
I'm trying to engineer a situation in my head where I would want to exceed as Morathi.
That
So
might
like,
tell me everything that I need to know.
yeah. Okay. My opponent is Anji. He looks at the top card of my deck, and then I have I have to reshuffle this turn, and there's one card in my discard pile, and the other 28 cards in my deck are in my hand. And Anji looks at the top card of my deck again, and then I am in exceed mode. I can discard both of them so I don't get scrambled, but then I lose the game to the scramble anyway.
Because all of your cards basically do the
Yeah,
same thing anyway.
no, because I just decked out.
Because you just decked out. Okay, I
Because I
see.
have 28 cards in it.
I
Yeah.
see. I see. Okay. So
Um,
in that situation,
I
understood.
yeah, yeah,
So don't, in other words,
yeah.
don't
Don't
exceed as
exceed.
Morathi.
Waste of time.
This is the Morathi that we're going to be playing as for the game.
Yep. You
Makes
don't have an
sense?
exceed mode.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay. Might as well talk about those two gauge sinks because they are
Sure, yeah,
what all
this
of
is
the
what we
gauges
have
go into
instead of an
anyway.
exceed mode.
Right, right. The first one is God of War. This is the one you are usually going to spend gauge on. I would wager that the majority of the time, if you have gauge, it's going towards playing this Ultra. You've talked about Vega, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Vega has a card that's really similar to this. It has no guard.
It's a bloody high claw, right? No, the other
I
one.
think,
No, it's the one with mask on it. It's not the one
yeah,
with
yeah,
claw on it. Yeah.
correct, yeah. That card is basically this. But like this card has 6 guard, so it loses even less.
Right.
Um, Like, what do I even say about this? Like, if you played Exceed, you look at this card and you understand, wow, this card is really, really dumb.
Yeah, so like to wit, it's a 1 to 4 sweep
Yep,
that beats sweep on that that
it just beats
cleanly
Sweep.
cleanly
Cleanly.
stuns sweep.
Yep,
That's 4 speed, so it's on
yep,
curve at 4.
yep.
Um, with
It beats
a
Dive if you initiate, never loses to Spike.
right, with a it could catch cross at range 1.
Yep,
Um, beats grasp for the same reason with an
yep.
incredibly brutal hit effect on it.
Yeah, it is
Um,
worth mentioning. This effect reads as symmetrical. Both players discard 3 at random. It is not symmetrical. You both have infinitely more economy than almost every other character in the game because you
right,
draw 1 every single time a strike happens.
right.
And also, notably, don't spend a card from your hand anytime a strike happens.
Right, yeah, you can still continue
Um,
your offense when you're at low
yeah,
hand size, and your opponent might not be able to.
that and also when you were at 0 cards, both like if both players are at 0 cards, Morathi is better because he has higher stats than everyone else.
Right, right, okay. And so uh Morathi dragging his opponent down to his level, which is we're gonna fight.
Yeah,
None of this fancy stuff. He's gonna win that fight.
yeah,
Okay. Okay. So um I guess in terms of like actually talking about the utility of the attacks, there's gonna be sort of this blanket like like undercurrent of every time we talk about this card, which is that if you play it as a wild swing, if you wild swing and it shows up, you're probably happy. And if you're
yep,
not happy, it's because it was the wrong card to wild swing. So
yep,
like the actual question, I guess, for wild swing characters is like, are there times when you would play this attack from hand and like
yeah.
choose to use it? Um,
Yeah, did you read the stat line?
yeah, no, and for this card in particular, it seems like it's a pretty done deal, right?
Yep.
But like
You
as
have
we
3
go
gauge,
through
you
the
can
rest
play
of the
this.
kit, I guess that's how we should probably be thinking about it, right? Like, are there times where you would play this as an attack from hand?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so with God of War, pretty easy, right? That
Yep.
seems like a pretty straightforward call.
Notably, this is on hit timing as well that it causes discards, which does have it does have some pretty funny interactions with block. Where if the opponent
Fuck
has no
yeah,
cards in hand, or like 3 cards in hand, and you hit them with God of War, you just stun their block, assuming
yeah.
they have no gauge.
They just can't block it anymore because they don't have
Yeah,
the force to pay.
or they have to spend from gauge. But it's like, yeah, this just cleanly beats block, which is a very funny statement.
Yeah, okay. Without ignore armor, ignore guard. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
Okay, okay. Um,
Um, yeah.
so
What a card.
so I yeah no it seems amazing. Um, I am noticing a lot of numbers on the kind of bottom 25% of the card here on power overwhelming.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, +3 power, +2 speed. That's a lot of number. A, and even another number is that this is a 3 force ultra boost.
Yeah. Um,
Tell me a little bit about power overwhelming, please.
so this boost is really broken. Just like the attack it's on, like hilariously so.
Yeah,
Um, 3 force cost, it does not matter because you are Morathi and you have infinite econ and you never strike from hand.
right.
Never being, an over exaggeration, but your econ is amazing. So this 3 force cost is usually just like a really funny joke. Um, and this sure does say +3 power, +2 speed.
Yeah,
Like, like,
this this almost automatically confirms whatever you're trying to do with it, and also
yeah,
so like throw it on assault.
you win the
Assault now
strike.
stuns sweep and is speed 7.
Yeah.
Like bottom text, right?
There's really not much to say. Like
Right.
that is a ridiculous like Way of the Warrior
Yeah.
on Ryu or True Master on Ken. Notably extremely strong boost.
Yeah.
On some extremely strong cards. This is a pretty similar situation. It does cost 2 force more for only 1 more stat point, but like who cares?
But also, so to your point, Morathi has the economy to afford it, and
Yep,
also 3 power is a lot more in Exceed than 2 power, and that's very relevant.
sure is.
So the okay, a couple other questions about this because again, it is so straightforward, and we're sort of looking for reasons to keep talking about it, right? But first question, um, is my deck consistent enough to put power overwhelming on a wild swing? Or is
Yeah.
this the kind it is? Okay, I don't need to have
Yeah.
something in hand to confirm it.
I'm gonna be real. I have boosted this and like turn one, spent my entire hand on it, and then just like hit the opponent.
And it's been fine. Okay.
It's been fine. Yeah,
I
like I
gotcha.
don't think that's optimal. You do kind of care about this getting teched, but maybe not as much as you would expect.
Right. Okay. Okay.
If the opponent has additional copies of tech, or if like they're a season 6 character who has tech hit on block, then you do care about this getting teched a lot more. So like you don't throw it out when that's a problem. That's only a problem if for some reason you spending a turn not striking is a problem.
Right. Okay. So the other question about this is that I just got done saying, like, when we're evaluating all of these attacks, it's going to be like, if they're in your hand, is it worth striking with it? Or is it like by default, is it a boost? But now here's a third thing you can do with the cards in your hand, which is pay for something like this.
Yeah.
And this seems like a compelling enough use case for the rest of the cards in your hand that you might just do that. And you don't actually care very much about going to a super low hand size because you're Morathi.
Yep.
Okay. That makes sense.
In my opinion, you play this card as the attack more often than the boost. But both are really broken, so you really can't go wrong just putting this card on the table.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So you'll use both sides of it, and it's not a situation that's probably going to win or lose you the game because they're both incredibly good things to do.
Yep.
Okay.
Don't boost it if you need to threaten God of War to escape a checkmate, like your opponent has like a 10 power sweep or something, and you need to be able to beat it.
Right.
That's about it.
In a situation where somehow power overwhelming wouldn't let you beat the 10 power sweep.
Yeah.
Right.
Like it exists, I guess.
Yeah.
Yep.
Both, and honestly, like a big part of what would be the deciding factor for this would be like, do you have 3 gauge yet or not? Do you see a situation where you could get to 3 gauge fairly easily, or is your hand big enough to afford power overwhelming without dipping into your gauge?
Yep.
And that might answer the question for you. Makes sense to me.
Yeah, that's a really broken card. Let's talk about the other really broken card.
Sounds good.
This is Shadow of Death. It's an 8 gauge card that has 1 range and 15 power and 8 speed.
Uh-huh.
Alright, so I guess we can move on.
what else about the card is there, Aevusonian?
So, yeah, this card has no text for the attack. The attack itself is just 115-8, which is a really, really dumb stat line. It beats everything. It wins the game if it hits 99% of the time.
Right.
It has other text, which is not related to the attack, though, which is that if you do not have enough gauge to use this during a wild swing, you get it into your hand. So that's another free draw. You know, you draw one from this part of the wild swing, and then you draw this.
Right.
And then you also just get 2 free gauge for some reason.
So the way that this would work, like, this is on top of my deck. Actually, even better. It's here in my deck, right?
Yeah.
I wild swing this.
Let's just say you have like a discard pile.
Yeah. There you go. I wild swing this. I look at it. Assault doesn't work here. I put it in my hand.
Yep.
My next wild swing, Shadow of Death. Cool. It's invalid. It goes to my hand. I get 2 gauge and wild swing again.
Yeah. Oh, and look at that. It's sweep.
Okay.
Or a sweep shape.
So this is option selection for my wild swings. It's a gauge generator. It's a force generator. It will go into my hand for later, so that if I have 8 gauge later on, I can just play it.
So, notably, this is not actually an option select for your wild swing. The way this card's effect works is that if you actually have enough gauge to play this, you can't invalidate it to get additional gauge.
Oh, true. Okay, I see what you mean.
It is an option select in the way that, like, okay, you peek at the top of your deck and, like, all right, here's Shadow of Death. It's invalid, even though I have the 8 gauge because I want to play something that isn't Shadow. But like, it's 115-8.
Right. I guess what I mean, I didn't mean option select. Then what I meant is like, it's a consistency tool. So like, if what I need is 3 cards down, in my deck, and one of them is Shadow of Death, I just get it. Right.
Yep.
This also would mean, though, that if this was on top of my deck and I wild swung it first, and I put it in my hand, I'm losing out on 2 gauge.
You very rarely do that. If you see this on top of your deck with your ability, you keep it there.
Right. Makes sense.
Unless your discard is like literally empty, at which point, yeah, you are concealing a little bit of information. by
Sure.
taking this to your hand.
Sure. Okay.
Um, but yeah, um, it is worth mentioning that this does build gauge on the card that requires 8 gauge, which is a ludicrously high number that you never get to in
Right.
most games. But it builds 2 gauge by itself. So Morathi actually can fairly consistently play for this if he wants. And he does have another source of gauge generation in the kit. So, like, actually playing Shadow of Death is something you can do. A lot of the time you just don't need it. Because
That's so
generating 2
funny.
gauge, yeah. Generating 2 gauge means you're 2 out of 3 gauge to playing God of War, and like if you play God of War twice, you win, which is only 6 gauge.
Right.
Um,
Right.
so like it really is not actually your main win con a lot of the time. But if you want to play for Shadow of Death, you always can, and you've got Assault in the kit. Every character does, which means you can Assault, go to range 1, play it, and you just win.
Right. And also, I mean, like playing for a card in the context of a wild swing character means something different, right? Like if all of your God of Wars are at the bottom of your deck and
Yeah.
you have wound up with 8 gauge and a Shadow of Death in
Yeah, you just
hand,
play it.
you're like, well, I mean, I'm not gonna not play it. It's 15 damage.
Yep.
Okay.
Um, Notably, the existence of this card is another reason why you are almost always wild swinging, because preparing and drawing into this card is such low value compared to
Sure.
wild swinging it.
Sure.
Whereas if you ever wild swing this card, you not only got 2 force into your hand with this card, you also got 2 more gauge, which means your effect of drawing a card is now sort of draw 4 cards
Right.
in
Right.
addition to the one.
So this is in terms of like economic value generated. This is so much better than the prepare action, and it's it's on an action wild swinging that I was planning to do anyway.
Yep.
Okay, so this will
Um,
I'll just luck into some economy with this.
yep.
Okay,
You definitely want to wild swing because this card is in your deck.
right.
Um, all the other benefits aside, the mere existence of this as like an insane high roll you can roll into, and it's not even that crazy considering you go through 2 cards every time you wild swing, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Um,
Again, I was
yeah,
watching you play yesterday. You picked up quite a few Shadows of Death.
yep, you go through your deck very fast.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, this uh is a really ridiculous card.
Yep. Seems like
It
it.
does have a boost on it. The boost is very funny. It is a 4 force cost boost, one more than 3. Which just reads now range 1, both players discard their hand,
So
which
so what you're telling me is that I should never play. I should never pay for this boost with Gauge
yeah.
because like the cards that I'm paying for, any of the cards I don't pay for from hand are going to leave my hand anyway.
Most of the time, yeah.
Right.
Um, you will like if your opponent has 7 cards in hand and you only have 2, but you have like a ultra
I see.
engage, like
Yeah.
you're more than willing to boost
Right.
this, and yeah. But like, yeah, there really is not much to talk about with this boost. You are better when both players have no cards in hand than almost every other character in the game.
Right.
So this boost usually puts you in a better situation than before you boost it, unless your opponent is not discarding anything and you are discarding a lot. Um, Obviously, don't boost this if you have a 13 card hand and your opponent has 4 cards.
Sure. Yeah.
Obviously, boost this if you have a 4 card hand and your opponent has 8.
And
Um,
and
yeah.
is this a scary enough thing that I can do at range 1 that like I can hold it over my opponent as a threat, or is it really just sort of an opportunistic play? Like if I don't think I'm going to be playing Shadow of Death and I wind up at range 1 with advantage or something, yeah, discard your hand.
Bit of column A, bit of column B. I don't think most people will actually be playing around this because it is sort of an inevitability that it happens if Morathi wants it to happen.
Right.
And also, like, usually the period where the opponent has to play around it, if it's something they care about, is very forecasted. Because when you put this card in your hand, 99% of the time, the opponent knows because you reveal it from a while.
You revealed it right from the top. Yeah. So they probably know it's coming. You probably didn't prepare anyway.
Yeah.
So it's unless you like boosted something and got it from your end of turn draw. That's the only time it would really appear in your hand. So without the opponent knowing. So intimidation is something that when you say that it's kind of an inevitability that it's going to be played. I also noticed that like, okay, so here's Morathi saying both you and the opponent discard 3 cards at random. And having looked very briefly over the rest of the cards in Morathi's kit and also watched you play yesterday, the impression that I get is that my opponents probably shouldn't be too attached to the cards in their hand, no
Yeah,
matter
yeah.
whether or not Morathi's playing Intimidation or not.
There was a very funny game when I was playing against Sea Viper, where this is actually a notable use case of this card. Sea Viper has a kicker on her Exceed mode that draws 4 when she exceeds, or sorry, 5 when she
5,
exceeds,
yeah, it's a huge
plus
reload.
1 for end of turn.
Yeah, and good lord, does she need it?
Yeah, yeah. This is very funny because if Sea Viper ever exceeds at range 1 of you, um, she not only spent her turn, but also she has no cards in hand.
Right, right. So that's like a backbreaker. But
Yeah,
so
yeah.
this is like a super huge version of something that I'm kind of going to be doing to my opponent anyway. Like,
Yep.
there's a lot of discard
Oh yeah.
in my kit anyway, and I shouldn't expect my opponent to be playing around this in particular,
Yeah, yeah.
because in order to play around losing cards at random or losing a lot of cards, they're going to be playing around like Morathi, not
Yep.
Intimidation. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And it will come up sometimes. There are going to be some games where this just never matters because your opponent never gets to keep their hand because of your
Right.
other discard effects. But like, yeah, this is a nuclear option.
And in that
Really good.
situation, when you're not, I'm sorry, really quick, but in that situation, when you're not going to be playing Intimidation, you have a Shadow of Death in your hand, you're probably not going to be able to get to the 8 gauge. Hey, this is most of the way to a power overwhelming.
Yep, yep. Or it
Right.
is just walk 2.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense to me. Sorry, you were about to say something.
Yeah, yeah. Really good against characters who have notably strong draw tools that are all like centralized in one place. So stuff like Eoquus, Selinka, uh, or Sea
Polar
Viper's
Knight.
Exceed mode, Polar Knight with
Yeah.
Rebuild, yeah.
Yep.
Jacko or Ramlethal when they exceed.
Yep. Makes sense.
Yeah, you can hold this, and if they know it exists, this does actually kind of suggest to them you should not use your Econ tool.
Right.
And that's a pretty cool threat to hold over them.
Right.
Because if they do it, not only did they waste their hand or they waste their turn, they also lost everything they just played for.
Right. And often characters who have very centralized draw effects, especially like the Polar Knights and the Eoquises out there, like they don't have any other draw anywhere else in their kit, and they kind of need it.
Yep.
They're often expensive characters, and everything being centralized makes them like, not only does it make them vulnerable to Intimidation, but when Intimidation hits on them, that's the game. Like they don't really have any other options to get those cards back sometimes, and they're an expensive character.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds really scary.
Very devastating also against characters who do not have those strong econ tools, but like have extremely high costs across their kit. So stuff like Rachel.
Sure, yeah, Rachel, Tinker Knight.
Yep. Pretty backbreaking against them.
Yep.
But then again, so is the rest of your kit. So
sure, yeah, you're a backbreaker.
All right. I think we have squeezed all of the words possible out of the 2 cards that have words to be said about them.
Right. Sure.
So I guess we can get to your specials now.
Yeah, let's do the lightning round.
All right. These are 4 copies of Sweep.
Let's take a look here.
They have differences, which we'll get to in a moment. I have arranged them in roughly descending order of value. Actually, more like this, probably. As attacks, Revenger is your best sweep, and Gyro Chain Dash is your worst sweep.
Okay.
And then you have this Assault, I guess. We'll talk about this one. This is a 5-speed card that hits at range 4, relevant because it moves you from range 4 to range 1.
And that's where you want to be.
Makes the opponent discard 3 cards.
Right. Like end of conversation, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I use it to get to where I want to be anyway. I'm discarding 3 cards from myself by doing that. And I'm probably just going to do that to get where I want to be anyway, because who cares? I'm Morathi.
Mm-hmm.
And then my opponent, they choose the cards, right? That they're discarding.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yours are at random, the opponents are not.
Right, but you care less.
Yep.
Right. When I was watching you play yesterday, this came up during Wild Swings and hit occasionally, and you were already at a range that you were fairly comfortable at, and you were like, sweep 3 times anyway. And discard 3 cards from me at random anyway. You'll just do that because the card draw, or I'm sorry, the card denial is that powerful.
Yeah, discarding 3 cards from the opponent's hand is a lot, especially when you have stronger econ than them, which is the case for most characters in the game. You have stronger econ than them.
Right.
So, yeah, if you're fighting a particular econ monster where the value of cards in your hand is actually higher than theirs, um, then maybe you don't full spend at like range 2.
Right.
But
But most
yeah,
of the time, like in that case, use it for movement, sure. But most
yep,
of the
yep.
time, you're fine to just go down on hand size to drain your opponent's resources.
The boost on this card is pretty relevant. It is an overcosted copy of Swift,
Swift, yeah,
which is fine because you don't care about cost because you're Morathi. So
right,
like, this is really expensive. You'll still play it if you want to boost stats.
yeah.
Boosting stats is good.
+1 power,
Morathi
plus
has
one
a lot of
speed.
really good stat boosts.
Yeah, this is a very relevant boost for a lot of situations. Even among the normals, it's just
Yep.
like a extremely solid, easy to mash boost.
Yep.
Um, okay. When you have Neck Snapper in your hand, are you usually thinking about it in terms of playing Crushing Might, or is this something that you would play from hand if you needed it?
Uh, I will usually try to boost Crushing Might out of the two of them,
Okay,
but honestly, I don't value this card especially high either way.
right,
Um, like it is relevant that you can play a 5 speed option from range 4, and that is probably the most common time that this card will come up.
right.
Um,
As
it
an
does,
actual option from hand, sure.
yeah, yeah. It
Right,
does have some notable jank, which is that if you have a low hand size, like after boosting Intimidation or something, um, you can't actually close 3 with this. But that usually doesn't matter because usually if you're at a low hand size, it's because you're already at range 1 and you already like walked there, or you just played Intimidation or something.
right, right.
So
Okay.
rarely comes up.
Right. And like so that brings up an important point though. This is discard. This isn't spend force, right? So
Yes, yes.
you're like you can't spend an
You do
ultra
need cards in hand.
you need cards in hand specifically it's one point of one space of movement per card spent, not per force value or something like that.
Yep, yep,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay. Sounds good.
This card also has maybe the funniest art of Morathi's cards because he's like lifting a dumbbell or something.
Oh my god, he is.
Yeah, and look the expression on his face is incredible.
His neck is so big. There's something very like Rob Liefeld about
Yeah, yeah.
Red Horizon art in general. It's very like aspirational, but aspirational for like a really, really, really hyper specific like body type. And
Yeah.
in Morathi's case, body type is just like big.
Slab of meat.
What if big? That's so
Yeah.
funny.
And his grin is so awesome.
Now he
Actually,
rules.
one of my favorite parts about Morathi is the character icon in the top right of the card. He looks so happy.
Oh yeah, he's having a great day.
He loves it here.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's Neck Snapper. And then we have
Okay.
sweep 4 times.
Yeah,
I
we've got 4 copies of Sweep.
I want to take a quick pause here as we to mention that like sweep is one of the best cards in Exceed.
Yeah,
So like additional copies, having one additional copy of
privilege.
yeah, that's amazing, right? Having 4, having 8, really, is maybe slightly excessive.
Yeah. And don't forget God of War is also basically a Sweep.
That's basically a sweep, sure, yeah, yeah. So, and I mean, when we talk about a sweep, I mean, this has come up sometimes that like an assault like could mean
Mhm.
a range 3 5 speed option. It could mean an on curve option that gets you advantage. It could mean all sorts of things. Sweep could mean a 1 to 3 with a 1 to 3 2 speed with some guard. It could mean something that has a discard effect. It could mean like a big haymaker. Um, but generally, when people say a sweep, like what they mean is like a consistent counterattack.
Yep.
Which is a powerful thing all on its own in Exceed.
Yeah. Playing a fast attack into Morathi is a fool's errand most of the time. Like, no one will ever be playing Grasp into you
Right.
because you have so many cards that beat
Look at
Grasp.
all of these sweeps. Yeah, a lot
Yeah.
of Exceed math is balanced around the fact that most characters only have like a little bit more than 2 copies
Of
of
each
sweep and 2
individual
copies of
thing.
focus. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. This is going to be a bit of a lightning round for the attacks.
Sure.
I'll put this one to the side because it does actually have a bit more to talk about than the other two.
Yeah, sure.
All right. So, Revenger is your best one. This is sweep, but times 2. It's like you played 2 copies of sweep because the opponent discards 2 cards and you get 2 gauge.
Wow, yeah. In every way except damage. This is
Yep.
just
And
better
speed.
sweep.
It is relevant that this is 1 speed, 7 guard. 7 guard does a lot of good things for you because it's focus defenses.
Right.
which can resist a lot of stuff like plus 2 power on an attack with 5 power doesn't stun this, which is pretty relevant.
Sure.
The fact that it's 1 speed 7 guard does mean it does have a pretty fatal flaw. Fatal flaw in massive quotation marks. But if the opponent boosts Fierce, Revenger is actually decently unsafe because Sweep beats it cleanly. And that's
Right,
kind
yeah,
of
even on
awesome.
defense, sure.
Yep.
And what are they going to use that Fierce for? It's on Grasp, and they're not going to be throwing Grasp at you.
Yeah, yeah. That being said, oh my god, this card is ridiculous. Yeah. This is actually one of the few cards where if I see it on top of my deck, I will just leave it there when I'm wild swinging instead of drawing it to my hand.
Right.
Because just the value of hitting this right then is usually so high
Right.
that it just doesn't matter.
And when it's in your hand, it's valuable enough, just like Sweep would be, that you'd be fine to play it.
You just play it, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. It helps that it has this really hilarious boost on it that you usually don't want to use. It's a 3-force boost that's scramble.
Right. and
like, yeah.
I mean, Scramble is a perfectly fine boost in a lot of situations, but I don't know if it's 4 total force good.
Yeah. You'll use it sometimes. You can use this to diffuse things. It's pretty good at doing that.
Sure.
Cost 3 force.
If your opponent has overcommitted to boosting way too many things, and their kit is not Morathi shaped, which is to say it's not super consistent on a wild swing, you can probably deny them a lot of value, and you don't really care about the force cost because, hey, you're Morathi.
That being said, usually the situation won't come up because there will be very few times where the opponent is allowed to have more than 1 boost because you're Morathi and you're wild swinging.
You're just wild swinging into their boosts anyway.
So yeah, this comes up pretty infrequently. It's usually only going to come up in endgame scenarios where like you're denying one very specific thing, or you're turning off the ability to wild or to play an EX from hand because wild swings can't, you can't wild swing into an EX pair.
Sure.
So like if there is one specific EX that really shuts down your plans, yeah, it's pretty good at doing that.
Yep.
Or like if you know the opponent has both dives in hand.
I mean, you're shutting down your plans. Your plan is to wild swing. Like, this will let you do your plan anyway. It just also gets rid of your opponent's ability to stop it temporarily. Okay.
So,
also, shout out to the art. I love the big elephant man.
This art's awesome because I still do not know if the elephant is his friend or not. Because if you look at the art on Shadow of Death, like they're going together in Shadow of Death.
Yeah. No, like this is how Morathi like greets his friends. They just scream at each other.
I wish this elephant was a character in Exceed.
Yeah, same. Honestly, what I'm learning is that Morathi rules. Like
he's awesome.
He's curling, he's hanging out with a nice elephant man. It's a good time. Okay, so if this is in my hand, probably I'm going to play Revenger. If it's a wild swing, it's a great wild swing. The Morathi story.
Yep. All right. This card has Fierce on it. This card has Light on it. We don't know why this is the case, but you just have like 2 insanely good stat boosts on these 2 cards.
Yeah.
If they're in your hand, you turn them sideways.
These are some of the best stat boosts in Exceed, right? Like Light and Fierce are game defining. You just get more of them.
Yeah. The attacks are sweet. Yeah. This one hits for 7 but loses to sweep, and this one beats cross.
Yeah, pretty much. So they both cover different use cases, but the time that you're going to be using them is as a wild swing anyway, so it doesn't actually matter.
Yeah, you basically never want to actually play these 2 from hand.
Right.
I will play this one from hand sometimes to specifically cover cross.
Sure.
Because cross, you have 5 million sweeps. Cross is a pretty great answer to whatever you're doing.
Right.
So yeah, you use this as a call out, but also it says +2 power on it. It's +2 power while conserving your mix-up, because getting rid of a copy of Sweep from your deck is a lot less important than getting rid of a copy of Grasp, because you have 1 copy of Grasp and 10 copies of Sweep.
That makes sense. And your cards are consistent enough that if you're at the range that you want to be striking at anyway, you can probably do worse than, like, you'll confirm the power fairly easily.
Yeah.
Right.
Almost definitely.
Okay. That makes sense.
It is slightly relevant that this is faster than Spike. So like at range 2. you can beat Spike. Once again, you have a full deck of sweep shapes. Spike is a fairly common answer to your stuff. Maybe not exactly on defense at range 2, but like it's real.
Right, right. And so what you were saying a second ago about like they often won't be throwing fasts into you. They will often be throwing mid speeds into you because you have a
Yep.
deck full of slows. Anything you have that can just kind of cleanly beat those options are going to be valuable to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can think of literally nothing more to say about these two cards.
Yeah. I guess the other question that I have now that it's come up, for when we're evaluating cards in hand as being particularly useful to strike with, really, so far it's been like Revenger and your Ultras. Um, are you considering things like EX attacks, or does that not really matter?
Usually doesn't matter because you just have enough stats to trade with everything. If you do just draw into an EX pair, then yeah, just let it rip.
Okay.
Like there are no rules here. Just jam it.
Right. Okay. Makes sense. And again, just like with God of War and Power Overwhelming, like it, these are not these are choices between two very good things.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
I guess it is relevant. You should very rarely EX God of War. You should probably just play both individual copies. That being said, what you should do to play both individual copies is usually to boost one and then play the other, because the chances that you discard off of God of War, the other copy of God of War, if you have both in hand, is pretty high.
True. Yeah, you don't want to lose God of War. So hey, what if God of War hit for 10? It's speed 6.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's like basically unbeatable at that point. Just if you have both copies, just boost one.
Right.
Live your life.
Yeah, makes sense to me.
Almost always better than playing the EX.
The EX, sure.
Unless turns are extremely sensitive.
Right. Or if you need like if you need to cover a Tager driver, for example, you need exactly 5 speed to
just boost it and then you have 6 speed.
Then you have 6 speed, right? That's a fair point. Yeah, there really aren't very many situations that a huge amount of stats can't answer and exceed, are there?
Yeah, for real. Yeah. Damage solves.
Yeah. All right, so that's that stuff. But really quick, before we get to Chain Gash, I am being hailed from by work. I will be right back. Okay.
Okay, sounds good.
Hey, sorry about that. All right. We were on Chain Gash. So really quick, they're probably going to message me again. Actually, could you just run through this card really quick, and then we can take one more break and then finish up the conversation after that?
Of course. Yeah, Chain Gash. Luckily, we stopped at a pretty quick card as far as talking about it. It's really bad. Its main properties are it's another copy of Sweep, which of course Morathi has a bunch of those.
Right.
It is your worst copy of Sweep, generally speaking, but it is still a copy of Sweep. One notable and useful trait that it has is that it has before close 2, and it's not contingent on getting hit, like with the Ivory Ghost Charge. So this is grappler movement.
Right.
Morathi mostly doesn't care about that. His economy is really high, so he can just run in, spending force.
Yeah, he can pitch force. Honestly, this is probably going to be one of the things he would pitch as force in that situation.
Yes. It also, similar to Neck Snapper, is a hand destruction tool because it destroys his hand to destroy the opponent's hand. So that's like kind of nice. Speaking of things that are kind of nice, the boost, it's Swift. Yes, we have an additional copy of Swift.
Right.
We have 2 of them for some godforsaken reason. This one is more expensive. It has a nominal benefit. It mostly doesn't matter. Morathi will still play it because it's Swift, and Morathi does a lot of really stupid things with Swift.
Sure. Yeah,
but
he's
you know,
stats man.
Yeah. Sometimes you play the boost because you're Morathi, you have ludicrously high econ, and you can afford to play a 2-force copy of Swift and have it actually be a reasonable thing. But yeah, card is bad, but it has its purposes. You will play it sometimes. Other times you'll just, as you said, spend it as force or boost it.
Okay, so I should be thinking.
Force, may I recommend Power Overwhelming? That boost is awesome.
Yeah, no, that's like Swifter, right? Yeah. So I should be thinking of Casting Bones as like if I have Casting Bones and Crushing Might in my hand at the same time and I need Swift, I will just pay for the cheaper one. If I either don't have this one and I still need Swift, or I need the rearrange the top 3 cards of my deck rider to do some kind of consistency buff for my wild swings, I'll pay for this one instead.
Yeah, which the rearranged top 3, like, it can matter, but it only matters in specific scenarios where you are trying to like control a Shadow of Death in a low deck so that you don't draw it.
Sure. Okay.
Otherwise,
Okay.
it's basically just, oh yeah, I can see what I'm going to wild swing, which I don't actually like that, because if I know what I'm wild swinging, I know what I can't wild swing, similar to D.
Right. Yeah. It's basically just means that you have 2 cards in your hand that you can't boost or spend as force.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And honestly, like Morathi seems like he has so much control over his wild swings anyway, and the cards are so consistent that like, who cares most of the time?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. It is mostly just here's an additional copy of Swift on this character that certainly does have a lot of stats that he can throw at the opponent.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. All right, cool. All right, yeah. Let me grab one more thing from work really quick, and then we can wrap up the rest of the lesson after that.
Sounds great.
All right, cool. All right, hey, sorry about that. So, I guess, we're on to normals now, right?
Yeah,
Cool.
and really there isn't much to talk about here either. Here's grasp here's sweep and focus. They're your other slows. They do the same thing as most of your deck.
Right.
Yeah.
Is the
Here's
fact
block.
that you that you have so many slows, does that make it easier to play things like light and reading? I guess you also have more light.
You
too.
also have another light,
Right.
honestly. So like, yes, literally. As far as reading, it's like it's a good boost when it works. The opponent is very frequently going to have no cards in hand.
That's a really good point. So
Yeah.
what are you reading for?
Yeah. Focus does have the notable trait of being the only kit or only card in your kit that has armor on it.
True.
So like more relevant in endgame scenarios than a lot of the rest of your kit.
Yep. If you're up against somebody who's trying to zone you out, and keep you out of that range 1 to 3, this is a way to stay in. So that's going to be valuable to you. And they're both good wild swings, right? You'll use them if you get them.
Yep.
Okay.
Spike and dive are the black sheep of your deck because they don't hit at range 1, which is, where you want to be most of the time.
Right.
These are usually the cards that you're very excited to put in your hand from your ability.
Okay, so you'll often just have a copy of Spike and Dive lying around because you drew into them. You probably didn't strike with them if you were wild swinging.
Yeah.
Okay.
You like playing EX dive?
Yeah. I mean, so whenever you play EX Dive, you're losing 2 copies of tech. Morathi, I assume, doesn't care very much
I don't
because
care. Yeah.
the way that you deal with stat boosts is by either stat boosting them better or wild swinging into them.
Yep.
Okay.
Very few stat boosts will compete with you just putting down power overwhelming against them.
Yeah, it's an overwhelming power, Aevusonian.
Yep.
I don't know what your opponent doesn't understand about overwhelming, but
Yep.
like they can't just be whelmed by it.
Spike is epic because if you get defend in your hand, you get to put it down and be like, all right, we're really definitely going to trade.
Yeah, with my consistent trading tools that I have anyway. And then you wild swing like the other copy of Spike or something in with anyway.
Yeah. It is relevant on exactly Ivory Ghost Impalement. That's a pretty reasonable case to boost defend. That being the 5-card 2-speed one.
Yep.
But
you wind up they strike into you at with sweep, and now you can still trade through it. This is actually we didn't talk about this at the time, but this is a shape that actually comes up sometimes in more recent Exceed, where it's like not actually that great as a defensive option despite its shape because it loses cleanly to sweep, and you really don't want to lose clean to sweep.
Yep.
Okay.
But honestly doesn't matter that much.
Right.
And any stat boost will do that a lot of the time.
Right. And when these are in your hand, other than the EX dive play, you probably have better things to do than call something out with a spike. You're just gonna wild swing.
Yeah, most of the time you are intending on trading like every single strike.
Right. Okay.
Just because you do it better. And very few characters can keep up with that. So yeah, you don't care too much about playing this mix up with Spike. It is relevant sometimes.
Okay.
You'll know when it's relevant.
Sounds like a really good card to pay for power overwhelming or intimidation or
Yeah.
something with. Okay.
All right.
Makes sense.
Here's Assault. For some reason, this card has a blank boost on it, which is
Yeah.
fine because it's a good card.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You are happy to play Assault. You'll probably have an EX Assault at some point just by filtering your deck.
It's a thing that usually trades, which is fine because you like trading. You get another turn, which is cool because you get to trade again.
And you just outvalue your opponent that way. Again, as an attack, it works at ranges 1 to 3. It's as good as range 1 as Neck Snapper is. Yep. Seems pretty easy.
And here's Run. It's kind of weird that you have a card in your deck that has no attack printed on it. But advancing 3 spaces for the cost of 1 card is pretty efficient. You like seeing this in your opening hand.
Right. Especially because then you can't wild swing it. And in order to wild swing it, I understand that you would need to already have drawn into one thing and then have it be your second wild swing. So it's going to be pretty tough to accidentally wild swing across if you're looking out for it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And like, you will have to play this card sometimes. Like, I'm being a bit facetious when I say there's no attack printed on it. Sometimes you just gotta cross out. There are things that are too scary in Exceed to sit there and trade with.
Yeah. Sometimes you're up against Zangief.
Yeah. And like, your stats are generally good enough that won't be a problem a lot of the time. With, not just the stats of your cards, but also you just have fat stat boosts across your entire kit.
Right.
But sometimes you need to, like against Zangief. And in those cases, you have a strong enough econ that you can get back wherever you want most of the time, but just by walking. So it's really not that big of a deal.
Yep, makes sense. And again, you have the Force. Probably you are going to have, unless you just played Intimidation and then you wild swung the cross and you have no way to get back in or something. Just spend cards from hand and keep wild swinging.
And here's Grasp. It doesn't do anything necessarily too unique. It is notably a 7-speed attack in your kit full of slows, which means opponents with command grabs are really incentivized to play those into you.
Sure.
This beats command grabs.
Yeah, honestly, like defensive grasp seems like something you'd actually be willing to play from hand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not your number one choice a lot of the time, but like sometimes you just know that Zangief is playing SPD and you got to answer it. So
you want to not get hit by the scary command grab, sure.
Yeah. For that reason, you usually don't actually boost this, but you also usually don't play it. You usually just try to keep it alive and then never have to use it.
Right. Sure. No, that makes sense. You hold it over your opponent's head so that they can't play the scary command grab into you.
Yep.
Okay. That is every card that I guess block.
That's block.
Yeah, don't worry about it. That is every card that Morathi has access to. My last big question, we've already sort of been talking around it this whole time, is about economy. Like, obviously, here are my gauge payouts. Really, here's my gauge payout. I'm going to be spending time walking, running, if I need a force reload, and then paying for big expensive boosts with the remainder of my force. What's that?
Sometimes cheap boosts.
Yeah, sometimes cheap boosts. I'm talking specifically about like what I'm directing my economy to.
Sure.
So I'm like those are the gauge sinks, or the force sinks rather. Am I ever taking like the change cards action, or do I not really care?
You don't need to.
Okay.
Okay. Once again, sometimes in endgame scenarios, you need to fish for one specific card.
Right.
You can do it then. But most of the time, there's just not a good reason to do so.
Right. And if you're taking a turn off from striking, it's because you're out of range, not because you're out of options. Because if it's not in your hand, it's in your deck because you're a wild swing character.
Yep.
Okay. What are like my target cards to spend as force if I need it?
Usually that will be these. Also this. Also this sometimes, unless you're taking the walk action specifically.
Right, sure.
You don't care too much about these 2 cards. You really don't care about this card most of the time.
Okay.
Unless you're boosting any of these 3, they're pretty good force.
Right. So
and also you can spend Neck Snapper. That's fine.
Okay. So really, it's my ultras, my other really good slows, assault and grasp and revenger that I'm not super willing to spend as force.
And notably, this is only because you're keeping the mix-up alive. If it's a matchup where the mix-up doesn't matter, like the opponent doesn't have a command grab, just spend this.
Go ahead and spend it as force. And like, if I really, really need power overwhelming, I will do it. These are the ones that I'd prefer to spend.
Yep.
Okay. Yep. Makes sense to me. Yeah, seems pretty straightforward. I guess my last question, just to make it explicit, I think I have the answer at this point. But you mentioned that the auto Morathi line is not the optimal way to play Morathi.
Yeah.
And other than some boosts and being more willing to bank a card in hand when it was going to hit on your Wild Swing, which Autorathi would never do. Autorathi would say, yes, I'm going to play this card. The line that you're describing is an awful lot like Autorathi.
Pretty similar, yeah.
So optimal Morathi is Morathi with occasional converting tempo to the occasional boost and being more cognizant of your deck order so that you can stock your hand with good cards.
Yeah. Playing Rathi or Morathi better than Autorathi is as simple as being willing to boost these 5 cards.
Okay. Yeah. And I mean, 3 of them really, really don't need much, like anything with stats on them. Honestly, 4 of them. Honestly, 5 of them really don't need anything in terms of in terms of the sales pitch. This is something that we've said a couple of times now. Okay, so you do that. You're doing better than Autorathi. Autorathi is already pretty good.
It is worth noting that Morathi is a very, very strong character.
Yeah, you're pretty good to just do that until your opponent makes you stop. Any other kind of like high level strategic notes about Morathi, or should we talk counterplay?
Well, we didn't even talk about the mulligan.
Oh yeah, please do. I'd love to know what you're mulliganing for.
Here's
I'm
your
assuming
mulligan
just cross.
strategy. Here's your mulligan strategy. If you see an attack that doesn't hit at range 1, you keep it.
Yep.
You don't want to wild swing them.
Sure.
If you see Shadow of Death, you put it back into your deck.
Yep. End of mulligan?
Yeah.
You don't care otherwise?
You will usually put all of your 1 to 3 or slow cards back into your deck if you see them to maximize the chance that you draw into these.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really not that hard.
Yep, seems pretty straightforward. And I assume that this is in here because you want run.
Yes, you want run.
Yeah, okay.
And it doesn't matter too much if you get it. You also want it just so you aren't wild swinging cross, which is a little inconvenient for you.
Right. Yeah, no. Seems, again, like a lot of other things about Morathi, pretty straightforward.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah, okay. I feel like this has been mostly just a showcase of really good art.
Oh, I didn't even mention Ivory Ghost Charge. This art is awesome.
Yeah,
it looks like he's got a bunch of sausages on his like ribs for some reason.
Yeah, his obliques go crazy.
Yeah.
All the ones with the elephants. I love the elephant sub theme. I love him just curling. Yeah, Morathi's cool. I feel like if what we were trying to do to pad time on this lesson, we're actually honestly like at a pretty good clip at this point. Like we're over an hour, which yeah, right. It worked. It ticks the box for X. I succeed. If what we were trying to do to spend a bit more time, if we still needed to do that, I feel like art critique is probably the play, right?
Yeah.
That'd be really fun. But yeah, so counterplay is typically the last thing we talk about, really. And we've outlined the simplest game plan I've ever seen on an Exceed character, and one that seems really hard to stop. So what is my opponent doing to deal with Morathi?
All right, so how do you fight Morathi 101? Number 1, don't get hit by Revenger.
Yep, don't give him
cage. Don't get hit by it. It really sucks. Number 2, don't play your econ things at range 1. It really sucks.
Sure.
Number 3, try not to hit or get hit by God of War, but you probably will. It's
you probably just
inevitable.
will, yeah.
Yep.
So now you say like try not to get hit by them, but by playing around these two cards, what I'm doing, I guess maybe not God of War, but by playing around Revenger, I'm playing around Sweep, right?
Yeah, you are filtering out most of his deck by
Yeah, I'm playing around
Revenger.
almost everything else when I'm playing around Revenger.
Yep.
Okay, but ideally, the thing that I am most concerned about getting hit by is this card.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because of the general fact that if Morathi is hitting you, he is discarding all of your hand. You want to avoid pursuing lines that require specific cards to remain in your hand for multiple turns. So,
Sure.
like, you don't want to go down specific paths that rely on like playing Assault into another specific card in your hand. It is a bad idea.
Right. You
will
probably
not
won't
be able
have even on defense. He'll probably take a card from you, and you can't guarantee that you'll have your follow up ready.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you should generally commit to more singularly high value plays, such as boosting Fierce and then hitting the opponent.
Right.
You cannot consistently outtrade him. That's fine. You don't need to do it consistently. You just need to do it enough times that the fact that he is almost entirely trades based means that he will inevitably die.
Sure.
Win clean a few times, your Spike and your Dive and your Cross, all really high value cards. Morathi does have answers to each of these individually. You just have to accept that. It is always a mix-up, right?
Right.
But these beat his deck disproportionately often compared to other decks. You also want to make sure if he is offering the trade, you are getting the highest value off of the trade possible. You do not want to play Grasp into his sweep. You want to play your own sweep or focus if you are, set on trading. You want to maximize the value you get from each individual interaction. That's the main thing.
Right, because the more interactions there are, the more Morathi is probably favored to win the game.
Yeah, yeah.
If you're like nickel and diming him, and he's hitting you decently hard and building a lot of resources to play his ultras, that isn't going to work.
Yeah.
Okay.
His biggest strength is that at a baseline level, he will always get a moderately higher than normal value from each interaction.
Sure.
He just has good numbers.
Yeah.
And very consistent numbers. So what you need to do is either deny a trade, which is what he wants to do, or build your board in such a way that the trade actually favors you.
Right. Okay. So
and that'll depend a lot on your character.
Boost power to make all of his pretty good guard values suddenly seem slightly inadequate. Just watch out for his big power boost, the big power boost of his own. Keep your techs for that.
Yep.
Dodge where you can. Cause him to waste value where he can, but mostly just like hit him pretty hard and consistently yourself if you can afford to as a character.
Yeah. It is also worth trying to like bleed out his options. This isn't to say get rid of his economy or drown him or derive him of cards. What this more so is be willing to cross out knowing that Morathi has to spend something to get back in.
Sure.
And then don't actually pursue going back in yourself. Wait for him to do it, because that gives information to you.
Right. Yeah, and I mean he has a lot of redundancy among a lot of things in his kit. He's got a lot of sweep likes, but if he has to spend focus, now there's no more reading. If he has to spend assault, now he can't gain advantage anymore. There are things that we can do to force his to force him to interact with us on our terms a little bit more.
Yep.
Okay. That makes sense. Is that kind of it for the counterplay then? It seems about like slightly more difficult and fiddly than what Morathi is doing on his side of the board. But it seems like you are playing a simple, slightly high risk game of Exceed.
Pretty much. Morathi is just a gorilla. Like, think about what you would do if a gorilla was running at you in real life.
Right. You try to stay away from it.
Yep.
You
probably fail.
Yeah, you'd probably fail. You'd probably die, frankly. But if you were dedicated to fighting the gorilla, you wouldn't try to hit it 100 times with your hands. You try to hit it once with your car.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you would run to your car and drive it into the gorilla.
Right. I think I see the vision. So in terms of like the actual like value of these trades. Again, I was watching you. I've alluded to this a bunch of times now. I was watching you warm up with Morathi yesterday for this lesson against Serp's Sea Viper, and like the games that you won, the margins were pretty thin. Like it was not a. I think there was one where it was like a 21-0. You just kind of ran him over.
Yeah,
But Exceed be like that sometimes. But like your trades are not so good that you should expect completely free wins against competent players. You do
Yeah.
need to like they might need to work a little harder to beat you than you are beating them, but it isn't going to be like a free rollover. Morathi's trades are not that strong.
Generally, yeah.
Yeah.
Morathi does also tend to make games look closer than they are. Just by virtue of the way his kit works, he is very dedicated to trading with you.
Sure.
And so there will be a lot of times where games are actually over when it's at like 15-15.
Right. Because you have 2 God of Wars ready or something.
Yeah. But it goes down to like you having like 4 health. And it's like
right.
That'll happen. By virtue of how he interacts with the game, a lot of the time they will look closer than they actually are supposed to.
Right, that makes sense. I can't believe we're sneak dissing Serp on this lesson, Aevusonian. I almost called you Morathi. You embody the spirit of Morathi.
I hope I could. Like,
yeah, no, go hang out with some elephants.
That'd be sick.
Yeah, I feel like that's the play. That's really the takeaway from this lesson. All right, so it sounds like we've got the plan, we've got the counterplay. I don't actually remember if we did this on the hide lesson, but the last thing I sometimes ask, assuming that the lesson has not gone too long, parentheses, this one has not, is other characters, like if you're a big Morathi fan, who else would you find out that somebody's a big Morathi fan, who else are you recommending to them as characters they might try?
Yeah, first character I would recommend would be Ragna. Ragna has a very similar game plan of he wants to trade with you, and he wants to just incrementally win by trading with you and playing good neutral.
Sure.
Another character who has sort of similar things going on is Imogen, who has very solid consistency with her wild swings, and also can gain value by doing so that isn't literally just only playing a card from her hand or only avoiding playing a card from her hand.
Right.
Similar sort of economy structure there. If you want to play something that requires maybe a little bit more understanding of your resources and management, Gabrek actually does have sort of similar traits to Morathi, such as drawing a card a lot of the time a strike happens, and having to trade a lot. But he's a lot worse in a lot of ways. So you have to think a little bit more.
I love Gabrek. He rules.
He's so awesome.
He's the best. And then obviously, we have a couple of wild swingers down here. These ones are all more like upside, less consistency than Morathi is. Imogen is really the wild swinger who's a lot more like, I go to range 2, it's probably going to work just fine.
Yeah. Oh, and if the part of Morathi that you actually like is playing the big boosts and incrementally gaining value over time, which is not actually his main strength, but it is something he does pretty well. You might consider Hawkman, who does have a fairly similar kit shape of a lot of slow attacks that trade, and a lot of big boosts that do a lot of really good stuff for him.
Sure, yeah, massive Tsubaki. Whatever the one on, Zanshin? Is that the one on that you never play because it's on your really good slow card? I have the deck right in front of me. I don't know why I'm not just looking for the card I'm asking you about. Zanshin's on Shipu. This boost rules. The one I was thinking of is Kishu, though. Is the one that you would never play because it's on Zentetsu. So like a pretty solid contingent of characters here. So basically, I guess what I'm saying is for people who are newer to Exceed and who like any of these folks, and maybe for example are hoping to help defend the Earth in a tournament coming up soon, and they're looking for their Season 1 representative. If you're a big Ragna fan, maybe go try out Morathi and see if you like him and bring him to the tournament. Yeah. Well, Aevusonian, this was awesome. Thank you so much for the super snap lesson. We kind of planned this at the last minute. I really appreciate how quickly it came together, and obviously your expertise, as always.
I'm impressed we managed to talk this much about it.
Yeah, I know. I think people always underestimate it a little bit, right? This still
Yeah.
might be the shortest lesson, but it's pretty close. Um, but yeah, folks at home, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. Thank you all for watching. I will see you all for the next one. Goodbye, everybody.
See ya.